Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about 8 Passengers, Ruby, Connections, Mums of Truth, and more specifically, her daughter, Shari Frankie, who has recently spoken out about her time on YouTube's most famous or infamous family. Now, Shari has been on 8 Passengers since she was about 12 years old or so, and she has literally grown up in front of the camera. But in December of 2021, she was finally allowed to fly the nest when she went off to college.
You can come back and organize your room exactly how you want. Are you going to do a video for your YouTube channel?
I'm filming one this afternoon.
Incredibly, on that day when her mother Ruby allowed her to leave, and I say allowed her because she ran the channel, which in turn ran her daughter's live. Ruby allowed her to leave to go off to college, and she has something profoundly insightful to say for the first time ever, I think.
I don't feel a breakdown coming on, but I think it might come as I'm driving home.
I just keep saying she's like 12 minutes away. And I work here, so
I know. For me, it's not the distance or the time. I don't have that stewardship over her the way I have. A mother just has this, I don't know, this gift, this revelation for her children where she knows, I know when Sherry's been in trouble, and I know when Sherry has needed help or intervention in some way, whether it's a hug or a smile or a lift or a talk or a conversation or discipline, like whatever it is. I've always known. Now that she's moving out and she's been on her own, I can feel that stewardship, that revelation on her behalf has been, it's like this mantle of power that I've had on behalf of my child. I can feel it lifting, and that mantle is not there for her anymore. And
the mantle of power that she had over her daughter has been lifted because her daughter is leaving home to go to college. I don't think we need to say any more about that, do we? Quite clearly, she is a control freak, and she didn't have that control anymore. That's what she could feel. Now, since Shari left home, things have taken a turn for the worse for Ruby and the entire family. In fact, it's been well publicized that the family have gone through some difficult times, mainly brought on by Ruby and her affiliation with this cult-like organization of Connections. And the family's broken up. It seems like the marriage is broken up. Shari has distanced herself from the whole 8 Passengers thing, and in general, just she has been the most outspoken of all the kids. And finally, she's told a little bit more about her actual time. She appeared on a podcast a few weeks ago, and she had some insightful things to say too.
When I was in 10th grade, so I was like 15, my family joined a group, like a mental health, kind of like a self-help group basically, because we wanted to, grow closer as a family. We wanted each of us individually to become more like self-sufficient and growth oriented. And so we started in this group.
So I think this may be Connections that she's referring to. She doesn't refer to it directly, so it's a little bit unclear, but assuming she didn't join 2 different groups during her life that are of a similar nature, it probably is Connections. And it's interesting to hear from this perspective what it was like, because bear in mind, we've only heard about Connections the last couple of years when Ruby's got really into it, but they joined it much sooner than that, much earlier than that, which caused, or at least helped lead to the eventual breakup of their family. So it's interesting to see how exactly this went about.
And like, it was great at first. Like, we were learning like a new, like, learning lingo for stuff, and we were able to communicate in ways that we understood each other. And then, you know, when we interact with other people and we'd use the same language, like, they were very confused. They were like, I don't understand what you're saying. And so in a sense, I feel like that brought us closer as a family, because we knew what the other person, how they thought. We knew like how we could communicate with each other.
The problem with that, of course, is if you have a communication method which is only effective when you're talking with a small group of people and not the wider community, there's a term for that, and that is like cult-like behavior. So this is obviously the start of everything.
And then as like the years progressed, this group became more extreme.
Definitely sounds like connections then. If they are anything, they are extreme. But I believe they didn't start off quite as bad as they are now. They seem to be getting worse, if anything.
And they began to equate like their curriculum and their teachings kind of with the gospel in a sense.
So at first it wasn't with the gospel.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I never remembered that. Maybe they said it and I just forgot it. Yeah. But
see, now that's interesting, that is, because what she's saying is that it started off as basically a self-help group, like a mental health thing, and it progressed into more church-led or Mormon-led, and that kind of may tie in to Ruby and Jodie Hildebrandt, who is her partner in crime on this one, because she used to be a mental health practitioner and she was struck off. So it's entirely feasible that she would set up a self-help type mental health group and go from there. And maybe over time it became more a church-led thing, which is what we have today.
And I think we should throw a disclaimer out there that life coaching is a very controversial space right now in the mental health field.
yes,
Because
there's low accountability.
there's very low accountability. You don't need a license to become, like, there's no state certification for life coaching. And so you have to be very, very, very careful and research very deeply if you turn to life coaching.
I'll second that point, and I think it's a point very well worth making, is that these people who do this online are not qualified to give any sort of mental health or any other kind of advice, and you do so at your own risk. You take them on at your own risk. If anything goes wrong, you can't do anything because, as they said, there's no accountability, and it's just not. Personally, as someone who suffers with mental health problems, I would not ever go to somebody like this. Or maybe a self-help group is okay, but don't get too deeply attached to it.
I understand. So how did you feel about it? Like,
Yeah, so I remember going into it, and one of the people had said to me, like, I don't think you have a lot of, like, empathy for other people and a lot of compassion for other people.
like towards you individually?
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm going to work on it. And so I would say my prayers at night and be like, Heavenly Father, like, why don't I have empathy? Like, please help me to, like, have it. And
So that's very, very sad. Imagine going to one of these self-help type groups pushed on by your own mother, And the other people are in there. You're only 15 years of age. And the other people are in there telling you that you lack empathy, and you're so worried about it that you're going home, you're praying for it, hoping to get empathy and hoping that God will give you it, and it just doesn't happen.
I mean, obviously, everyone could have more empathy, I think, but I don't think I was like deprived of it. Yeah.
Cold-hearted.
Yeah.
So I get Cherry. You don't think she's cold-hearted.
No.
Unempathetic is the first word that comes to mind. Just kidding. It's like the last thing.
Oh man. So I look back at like a lot of the things that I prayed for at that age, and I like feel bad for myself that I was like so concerned with like, help me be clean, help me be empathetic, like I don't know what to do. And then I feel like I would work on it, and then I would go and talk with these people, and they'd say, you're still not getting it. And I would just like lose my mind over like, what else am I supposed to do? Like,
must have been so tough living with Ruby and in that little bubble, because you know, this isn't something that a normal teen should be having to deal with amongst everything else that they have to deal with.
And so I started to notice those things in like other people as well. So like I would look at somebody and say, your eyes look dark, like you're hiding something, and I still find myself to this day, sometimes I make snap judgments about people, and I'm like, crap, no, I don't want to do that. So it's like, it's taken a lot of work, and still is, to like undo that kind of like snap judgment mentality.
Years later, still working on herself to try and undo what her parents, specifically Ruby, has done to her, indoctrinated her with, and she's still working on herself. So good luck to her for, you know, trying her best to de-Ruby-ize herself.
So I started to like interacting with roommates and people that I hadn't met. I was very judgmental. I was like, wow, she's wearing that, like she's going to hell. Wow, she's wearing that, God's so mad at her. Or so like I was still very like judgmental about people like that. And I would take religion classes, and they would talk about, you know, God is so gracious and kind, and I'd say, well, they've got it wrong. And so I was just very like critical about the world.
So she was still struggling. It sounds really sad, because she's been taught one thing about religion her entire life, but her religion was based on keeping them in a bubble, basically keeping them in a YouTube bubble, keeping them in a cult bubble. And when she was released to the world and she was taking actual religious classes, she was being told something completely different to what she had already learnt from her mother and this self-help group.
And then I think like some things within my family were happening that I started to question, like, I don't know if this is okay. Like, I don't know if God would actually support this. Like, is this really the gospel? And so for a long time, for like 7 months of my freshman year in college, I was just debating. I was like, I don't know what to believe. Like, I believe the gospel is true, but I don't know exactly what that gospel is.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know where to draw the line between
life coaching and
like
gospel.
life coaching and the gospel.
Imagine that. You've been led a life one way your entire life, and then you get released into the world, you go to college, you meet new people, you learn different ideas, and you learn that things may not be or are not the way that you've been brought up to believe them to be, because you have not been exposed to anything else in your entire life. And that's unbelievably sad, and it must have been really hard for her to come to a realization that maybe her family were not right in the first place.
I gave no indication that I disagreed with what was going on, because I wanted to still be like included in things. And so again, for those like whole 7 months I was doubting, whenever I'd go home, you know, it was like, oh, we use this language, we talk about things like this. And then I noticed, like, when I would leave my family, like, I would just feel like spiritually drained. Like, I just wouldn't feel great.
Yeah.
So when she went home for break from college, she would still put up the pretense that she was with it. She was in the whole connections cult thing, but she was still, when she was leaving to go back home, she was just like, she was too drained to, you know, it would just make her drained, the whole thing, the whole cult that they had going there. And that's just not a good thing, clearly.
You know, and a few months ago, started going to like therapy, and that definitely helped to have like an outside person not tell me how to think, but be like, this was wrong, or like, you're totally okay to feel like this. And so that was like more of validating just how I thought, because a lot of times I'd want to, you know, love myself, and I'd want to, but then I'd always be like, no, like, I'm lying to myself, I need to be hard on myself. And
I feel like she's a very good benchmark for how family vlogger kids in the future are going to be. They are going to move out of home, hopefully. Some may not, due to not being able to get out of their little bubble, but they will move out, possibly go off to college, do their own thing, and find out that the world does not revolve around them, does not revolve around a camera, and just, it's completely different. The outside world is different to the world that they have been subjected to. And this is going to be a really, really tough realization for some, but at the same time necessary and a good realization.
so for me, looking back, like, God placed some people in my life, like really good mentors, that were able to help me through it. Really good bishops have been amazing. I've been able to reconnect with like a family that I was friends with in high school, and they've kind of taken me in as their own daughter. And so like I had, like, I felt like I had them to go to. It was hard to like not have my own family.
Yeah.
And then to hear other people talking about their trials and say, well, my parents were my rock. Like, they were there for me. And I was like, man.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, but to have, I mean, God will always put people in your life.
For
and
sure. Angels from
yeah,
heaven.
for sure.
The thing I'd say to that is, it would be nice to have, obviously, your own family to be backing you, but at the same time, your own family are not always the best people for you to grow as a person. And when you get older, as she is now, she has learned that, and I've learned that as well myself. So, you know, surrounding yourself with good people and accepting the help of good people will always help you grow, no matter what, even if your own family can't or are unwilling to do so. So for that, she has a huge amount of she's very lucky to have people who actually care for her now, and it's helping her, and I'm sure she is so grateful. Well, that was a very interesting insight into her family dynamics and her family life. Basically, how the family broke up, how the family channel broke up subsequently, and how she moved on past being this child star essentially, and where she's going from here. It's interesting because this is to come for so many more kids around the world who are also in this family channel bubble right now. So this was only part of the podcast. It was an hour's long, so I've linked the podcast down in the description box below. If you wish to go and watch the rest of it, please do so. It was very interesting. Until next time, please give this video a massive thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, definitely. And comment all your thoughts down below. Did you used to watch 8 Passengers? Do you remember Sherry? And what are your thoughts about it now? Until next time, have a lovely day and take care. Bye bye.